Have you ever heard of the Nirvana movie? No? Good. I lied, there was none. That's because there never was one. Kurt Cobain thought that'd be selling out, citing his punk rock ethics and penchant for the go find yourself narratives of Jack Kerouac novels. Anyway, the good news is that Nirvana managed to make their way onto the small screen instead of the silver one. In the form of MTV music videos, yes, but also a cartoon. Never mind, it's the Nirvana cartoon, it was ever so cheekily entitled. It starred bassist Chris Novoselic as the tall, handsome guy with a boyish charm, drummer Dave Grohl as the toothy-grinned prankster who was often down on his luck, and Kurt himself as the leader, thinker, and voice of reason. Together they made for a rather impressive group of flannel-donning ragtag compadres. It was 12 past midnight, and I'd just gotten laid off from my job as a women's shoe salesman. I'll admit that I hated the job. The humility of being put down by manatee-sized prima donnas who demanded that I shove stylish leather onto their buttery, obese bunions as if it was why my mama birthed me. But it helped me provide for my family, who I resented. Oh, man, my dumb, teenage, stereotypically blonde-haired daughter, my book-smart but otherwise gullible son, and that wife of mine. She was enough to drive a hard-working man to pieces, sitting around on the couch, watching her soaps and munching down bonbons while staining the cushions with cigarette burns and putting me down. Sometimes I ask the Lord why. Sometimes. Why I couldn't have pursued my football career further, but instead here I was watching a cartoon past midnight because I was in major fear of cuddling with my repulsive middle-aged wife. Ah, well. Enough with reality. Back to my fantasy reality that may as well make no difference because fantasy is reality. I was a pretty big fan of the cartoon, and at first the theme song wasn't much different from what I came to expect already. "Like most babies smell like butter," it began. "His scent smelled like no other. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do." At first I thought I smelled butter coming from the TV set, but then I remembered that I had left my midnight snack, a family-sized tub of store-brand cream corn, burning in the oven. Also, while the song played, the video showed Kurt Cobain tossing a crying baby out of a window. It landed on a trampoline and then landed inside of a naked lady's vagina before being sucked in and being reborn. You could see the labor pains and everything. There was no anesthesia or anything, but yeah, that was the Nirvana show intro, alright. When the distorted guitar lick faded out, Dave Grohl played a single drum beat, kind of like a rim shot, before reading off the episode title like he always did. Tonight's episode. I hate myself and I want to die. Wait, what? What an awful title for a television program. I was beginning to think that there was something wrong with the Nirvana cartoon, but I continued watching anyway. Now, the meat of the episode began with Kurt Cobain with his hand down his pants, watching what appeared to be the evening news. He had on a homemade Fermented Sloths t-shirt, which didn't surprise me. After all, despite being mislabeled the father of grunge, Nirvana had erected their sound based on the influences of other Seattle grunge bands, such as Mudhoney, Green River, and Grab Her by the Pussy. Kurt had his other hand on the remote control, but instead of flipping the channel, he fiddled around with it. All the votes have been tallied, and our network can now project "We're All Dead Inside." Kurt let out an inappropriate chuckle. "We were dead before the ship even sank," he muttered to himself, citing what I could only assume was a song lyric to one of his Nirvana albums. The existential Gen X angst from this episode so far was par for the course. But then Kurt Cobain flipped the channel and I was scared. It was an episode of Frasier, but Dr. Fraser Crane's eyes were missing. That, and he was bald. "Caller, you're on the air," he began. "I'm listening." When the call began, I instantly recognized the voice. It was someone who it simply could not have been. "Doc? Dr. Crane?" "Go ahead, caller. I'm listening." I did something horrible. Something terrible." He wasn't quite sobbing, but I could make out a terrifying mix of sorrow and fear in his voice. "Yes, what is it?" Dr. Crane responded, seeming to grow impatient despite his experience as a licensed psychiatrist. I killed my love. With something I love," he began. Suddenly, a squeaky Texan accent could be heard in what must have been the background. "You kill your wife with propane, Hank?" "Oh!" It's a horrified, middle-aged sounding man inquiring. This was simply unbelievable and weird. Then the next call was something similar. It was a child, though. He claimed that he clubbed his father to death for training him to hate his mother, who his father had ruthlessly murdered for failing to make dinner by their usual set time of night. This reminded me that my cream corn was still burning away in the oven. I laughed at the thought of my wife being useful enough to get out of bed and retrieve it. Well, that and me murdering her, but then again, I think she died a few years ago. I returned my focus to the television set to hear a stream of stories that made less and less sense to anyone who wasn't stark raving mad as I am. Troubles with a heroin-addicted bear, a science experiment concerning a Frankenstein resurrection of somebody's dead mother, a magic pill that could turn a brainiac scientist into a bumbling pea-brained perverted idiot. The heroin-addicted bear again, reincarnated as a Kiss fan with a best friend turned into an insatiable, bloodthirsty lover. A service that told you if you were in pain or not, but actually killed you if you called them and they came to your house. And then I saw it. A funeral. A funeral that suspiciously featured the presence of the first caller himself. Using my detective reasoning, I realized that the woman in the casket was none other than his wife. I could only wonder why the man who had murdered his own wife with the product he had sold had been allowed to even attend the cartoon funeral. This, of course, was a scene from the Fox television sitcom animation classic King of the Hill, but this hadn't even been conceived until well after Mr. Cobain had committed suicide, so this didn't make any sense at all. I'm the kind of guy that laughs at a funeral. KDC muttered to himself this time, again reciting what I could only assume was one of his lyrics. Then he did something that I could never hope to explain. He stared directly into the camera, or where the camera would have theoretically been, directly at me. You might want to get that cream corn out of the oven before it goes and starts a new metal revolution or something. He chortled, lit up a cigarette, and took a puff. Oh, and one more thing, he began to add. Anyone who even jokingly refers to cigarettes as faggots can just stop buying our fucking records, alright? He took the cigarette out of his mouth and he burned himself with it. Right in the fucking arm. He didn't yell, make a face, or even flinch. He did it again and again and again and again. The scene returned to Peggy Hill's funeral. It was at this moment that I remembered that my own wife was named Peggy, but I thought little of it. The focus shifted over into a conversation between the town's most famous Native American resident, John Redcorn, and the Hills neighbor, Dale Gribble. Knowing the history between these two, I knew the conversation would be tensed. Yeah, so I fucked your wife, got her pregnant, and you've been raising my son for me for the past however many years, doing all the hard work that no parent actually enjoys doing before I swoop in and take him back as my own boy, which he is, since I cucked you. Bitch!
I knew it, you lizard!
Dale shouted back before stabbing John Redcorn straight through the heart. Straight through the heart with a pickaxe he was hiding behind his back. John Redcorn was dead. Now, I guess that I shouldn't have been surprised, given that Hank Hill was allowed to attend the funeral despite gassing his wife to death with a propane valve jammed into her mouth, and I somehow knew this, but nobody cared that John Redcorn was dead. Or murdered before their very eyes. Mr. Gribble showed absolutely no emotion at all, picking up Mr. Redcorn's corpse, and he tossed it into a pit that had apparently already been holding Mrs. Hill's casket. Close-up of Mr. Gribble licking off the cartoon blood from Mr. Redcorn's corpse was shown, while the camera slowly zoomed into his eyes, for reasons I couldn't even begin to understand why it would zoom into his eyes, but it was very scary. I was just about to turn off the TV and force myself into having sex with my sleeping wife when the doorbell rang. "Who is it?" I asked. "Pizza!" A cheery and perhaps over-exaggerated voice hollered back at me. Now that was odd. I didn't remember ordering a pizza, but since my cream corn was already hopelessly burnt, I figured I'd take it if it was free. Oh, I wish I had one of those Amazon Alexa things to open the door for me at my command, but since I didn't, I got off my fat lazy ass and opened the door. A grisly-looking, orange-haired man with a vein snapping and bursting out of his forehead and disheveledly bloodshot eyes stared back at me. "What would you like on your tombstone?" he asked in a drawn-out manner that I could only assume was sarcastic. I'll take half pepperoni, half anchovies, all the way delicious, like All in the Family, because I'm actually a second-rate Archie Bunker knockoff. "No!" Strangely cheery but horrifically featured gentleman shouted back at me. "You're going to take it with lemons. Sour lemons. So difficult to suck on without making a face." "And when life gives you lemons," I started, think I understood what this hyper-realistic pizza boy was suggesting. "That's right," he barked back. "You bow down and suck on my unforgiving testicles." Oh, no, thank you. I wasn't about to become some sojourning pizza guy's pusillanimous little bitch. I turned around, running up the stairs, preferring to have deeply disturbing hot buttery sex with my wife than with this wretched man. Not sure where it came from, but I heard a clapping and laughter sound as I ran up the stairs disheveled. "Wake up, Peg! I'm having that dream again." Wait. That dream. That was it. I was dreaming. All I had to do was pinch myself or yell at myself to wake up, maybe. But I was running out of time. The orange-haired man was ascending the upstairs while pulling off his pants, revealing that he had a small pizza box wrapped around his genitalia the entire time. Stapled. I winced. Ugh! I could still hear the Nirvana episode playing downstairs. Kurt was talking seemingly to himself. All of the warnings from the Punk Rock 101 courses over the years, since my introduction to the, shall we say, ethics involved with independence and the embracement of your community has proven to be very true. I haven't felt the excitement of listening to as well as creating music, along with reading and writing for too many years now. I feel guilty beyond words about these things. Then I woke up. Some way, somehow, those words were like an alarm clock going off. I was self-aware again. I was a community college computer science teacher. I used to be in a punk or perhaps grunge band with a guy who no longer would talk to me anymore. I used to have long hair, unkempt, disheveled. I had received a bachelor's of arts in a psychology program that I didn't even believe in. I tried to make it as a sarcastic game reviewer who exaggerated his own insecurities for comedic effect, though most people didn't get it. I liked to go off on nonsensical rants based on the abstract, seemingly subconscious loose ends of my mind. I was angry, upset, depressed about a lot of things, like a failed retail job or 12 failed retail jobs, selling sunglasses on the New Jersey Turnpike to abusive wannabe gangsters who thought I was beating up on their moms because they asked for free stuff that they didn't deserve, or free of our cheap Chinese trinkets that shouldn't cost anything, but what the fuck? I felt as if I'd been in a trance for years. I had changed since the last time I knew myself. Gone crazy, maybe. Who was I? But all those loose ends, even the ones that seemed so random, they had some merit or explanation to them. I was afraid of the objective truth that we all must face. I was afraid of personal responsibility. I failed at romantic relationships, at finding long-term emotional and financial security. I wasn't a sitcom protagonist. I wasn't an insane homeless man or an intern for some television network or some sort of bandicoot, Pokemon, or chimpanzee. I called myself Dave, though that wasn't my real name. I based it off a character from some video game. Not Tony Hawk, though one for the 8-bit Nintendo Entertainment System. I guess I could tell you which one, but maybe you'd rather guess it. I don't know. I had done all of this to figure out who I was, how I could find happiness, some sort of sustained success, some sort of way of bonding with people, with strangers in some sort of meaningful way. When I woke up again, this time for real, I guessed, I was in a Halloween store stockroom. I saw masks all around me. Bill Cosby, Super Mario, Jerry Seinfeld, Bullwinkle J. Moose, the kid from Adventure Time. What was I doing here? I looked down on the dirty, dusty retail stockroom floor to see a pizza box, open, with crumbs inside, and what appeared to be a letter. Dear Dave the Useless, thank you for the laughs and the spooks. It's been real, relatively speaking. I paused and continued to read on. You just couldn't let me go, could you? This is what happens when an unstoppable force meets an unmovable object. You truly are incorruptible, aren't you? You won't kill me out of some misplaced sense of self-righteousness, and I won't kill you because you're just too much fun. I think you and I are destined to do this forever. Sincerely, your partner in crime, George J. Jetson. P.S. Good game. You lose. What in the blazes could that all mean? And yet I knew it meant something. I looked down to realize that my dark gray sweatpants were missing and were replaced with Spider-Man underoos. I had a feeling that this was a deep and powerful metaphor for something, but I didn't know what. I'd ignored up until now that there was a pain in my nether region as well. Perhaps my epididymitis was acting up again like it did every winter. But no, that wasn't it at all. Scholarly inspection of my scrotal area revealed deep and powerful bite marks. He'd gotten me by the balls. Mr. George A. Jetson did. I wasn't going to take this anymore. I reached for the doorknob, but it didn't turn. Strange. And pretty scary. I didn't want to live out the rest of my days in the stockroom of a shitty Halloween store with all these costumes. That much was for sure. I turned off the oven, put on my Romneys. That's a little joke, I mean my oven mitts. And took out my cream corn. I left on the oven for way too long. My cream corn was on fire, and it set my hands aflame. My Crash Bandicoot-themed oven mittens were not flame retardant either. Oh well. I just threw the fiery cream corn at a dusty old cobweb-covered bookcase, and to my great amazement, it turned around like something out of a Scooby-Doo animation. I guess that was my way out, but for some reason I didn't want to leave. My lungs were filling up with smoke, while my sweaty flesh peeled off in the intense heat, but, I couldn't help but think to myself this was okay. Knowing that my creamed corn was now rendered inedible, I ignored my hunger pangs and investigated a book that had fallen off the staircase. I smiled when I read off the title, revealing what it was. Heavier Than Heaven! Kurt Cobain's biography, authorized by Cobain family widow Courtney Love. This mysterious object contained a letter as well, but it wasn't from Mr. Jetson. Is it better to burn out than fade away? One number down, one number up. Then the other stays the same. 576. All things begin and end with Yogi Bear. A schism into a crystal night. Crystal clear? Eternal sadness? Not quite. As I read this, the fire had melted through my bones, killing me. But I wasn't dead. I was killed, but I wasn't dead. I was a skeleton. In my right hand was a vaudeville-style cane, and on top of my head was a top hat. I don't know why, but I just felt the urge to dance and perform a musical number. And I did. Have no fears, we've got stories for years. It's what we were born to do. Sank into a taco, slurped down dark light beer, though I prefer Mountain Dew. Yeah, girl! I coughed, cleared my throat, changed away from the course of the musical number, tossed off my top hat, pulled a beatnik beanie cap out of my rib cage. I snapped my bony flesh and sinewless fingers and began to recite a poem. But then I exploded. Highly realistic ore flew everywhere. We all know about the 1997 series King of the Hill. We all know about the 1997 series King of the Hill. We all know about the 1997 series King of the Hill. We all know about the 1997 series King of the Hill. Error. 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 I don't know what to do anymore. Error. Ugh. Highlight. Error. So that's about it for the Karate Kid. You go around punching people in the face. Error. Whee! Nintendo, it's for breakfast now! Error. 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 It was deemed too difficult for American audiences. Error. 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 But seriously, we all love you, Kurt. Keep the youth spirit alive.